What's up, Team Tobias? What's up, Wildwood, New Jersey? Lane Haymont here for the Literary Lens podcast. I'm with Ann Rose and Jackie Lipton. Ann was just telling us that she wants to start a agent real talk where she talks about all the agents in life, gives away all our secrets.
Well, no, actually, what I was saying, Lane, was that I do that for conferences. So if you are a conference organizer and you would like someone to come and talk to your attendees about agents and what we do behind the scenes, I'm your girl. But for our purposes, I think what we were really going to talk today about was when it's time to maybe have that conversation, when it's time to leave your agent or, when that kind of thing.
Except for us, people shouldn't leave us.
No, never.
I think we might have talked about this briefly on our first episode, how to go from good to great. And we said sometimes you just got to leave your agent, except us. Now we're going to talk about how and when to leave your agent, except us. So if you're represented at Tobias, cut this out. You're not listening.
I think there should be like an asterisk at the bottom of this that just says "accept us," right? Is that what we're gonna do?
Yep, believe me, I am actually gonna do that now. And I'll blame you for it. Okay, so I think first off, and Natasha Morris wanted me to preface this, that before you do anything, you have to talk to your agent about your concerns. And I'm partly saying that selfishly, as in, don't just fire me, please come talk to me, because maybe I can fix it. Maybe there's some miscommunique. But also because the golden rule, I think you should also talk to any other agent, particularly since if you're coming to me saying, I want you to represent me, and you already have an agent, I'm going to say, listen, you got to go talk to your agent first. Because unlike other agencies, and I'm not cutting that part out, we don't poach. That's not something we do, because I don't like getting poached, and I don't poach people because I don't want that on my shoulders. Maybe that sounds elitist.
No, I think that's fair.
Do-gooder?
No, I think that's just saying that you are, it's a moral thing, right? Like you are ethical. You're not about to break the bonds of ethics for your own personal gain. So I think that is fair and relevant.
I wish I could say all that, but I just don't want to poach people. I don't like it. I don't think it's right. And
well, those are all underlying reasons, just so you know, Lane. So
okay. I like the way you said it. It makes me feel better about myself, despite the fact. So, Ann Rose, give one of your spiels, please.
So give me one of your spiels. So I was going to say that when I do this talk, I have a little section in there that is about breaking up with your agent, like when it's time to break up, right? And that's the first thing. Are we doing a promo thing here too? So, and the first thing is that I always say is communication is key. So whenever I'm talking to my clients and whenever I even have like the call with potential clients, we talk about communication styles. And so I think it's really important early on to understand what everyone's communication style preference is and how it works, right? And I feel like if there's ever a time when you're sitting in your career and you're thinking, I'm scared to go to my agent with this, boom, that's a red flag. Like there's a problem. You need to go to your agent and have a conversation with them. So the only way that you'll ever get things fixed is if you have that talk. So if you think that maybe you aren't getting response times are taking too long, or it's taking too long for them to get their materials, or whatever your concern is, you have to have a talk with them first. Give them, let them know your concerns, tell them what your expectations are, see if you can come to an agreement on like what you want to do, and then see if there's follow through. And if there isn't any follow through and you feel like you're having this conversation over and over, then definitely it's time to break up. But I'm going to just reiterate everything that Lane said, is that you have to communicate first. What do you think, Jackie?
And yeah, I actually want to jump on the other end of that, because when someone approaches me for representation who has parted ways with their agent, one of the first things I ask is, since you've had an agent who you've left, clearly, you should have an idea of what you're looking for in a new agent. So if you haven't actually processed that, if you haven't actually, it's better if you've actually talked to your previous agent, but even if you didn't talk to them, at some level, if you haven't processed why you left them, other than, I didn't like their dress sense or I didn't like the font they used in their email, it can be difficult to have a meaningful conversation with the next agent about what in comparison you're looking for. What did your last agent not give you that you are now looking for? Because it helps me tremendously, considering someone who's been rep previously, because I know how I agent. So if all the stuff they're saying is stuff that I do, I can say, oh, okay, so I'm not the best next agent for you then.
I'm going to jump in and say I actually sat in on a offer rep meeting with Anne last week, 2 weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
And, the potential client, knock on wood, was asking questions. And I was all set to wrap it up, but then Anne jumped in and was like, no, I have my spiel, my questions to ask. And I was like, oh, shit. Okay, I probably should have questions to ask too. Damn. And then she started asking really good questions about what's your style, communication, what are you looking for? So I had another call or the Zoom today, and the potential client, knock on wood, was asking questions. And then I was like, oh, I have questions.
Good.
And I stole them from Anne. They were literally Anne's questions. And then it led into a whole big conversation about finding out more about this potential client's answers. And I was like, oh, okay, so this isn't something I have to worry about later.
Yeah, I think for me, in my agenting style, it's definitely a partnership. And so I think that, and also I have a communication background, like that's my degree. I have a degree in communication. So it's really critical for me to have those conversations upfront and early, and then just so everyone gets on the same page. And then I think that way it just kind of makes the sailing so much smoother down the road.
I agree. Jackie?
I'm fairly, I do have a way that I work that I tell clients on the call, and I hope they've given thought to what they need. I think, we're premising this episode on the notion of how to know if it's time to leave your agent. So I'm thinking of these mid-career authors. Obviously, if you're a new author and you're having these calls, you may not know what you want, and, you may just want to have an agent, and that just sounds cool. And it's just hard to figure out, to tell the difference between agents. But I think when we're talking about these mid-list folks that we're addressing, really do give some thought. And the other thing I would say is don't be mean. Like, I do think it's important to have a discussion, and sometimes the agent will open the discussion, and, sometimes you, the client, may want to open the discussion about like what's not working and should we part ways.
I think this also goes back to that code of ethics, right? Like there is no blacklist.
Right.
Like no one's going out there and hey, you should never sign so and so because of these reasons. But if it's like a job recommendation, right? Like if someone's going to call your previous employer and be like, okay, tell me how so and so was as an employee. Obviously, this is not the same dynamic. This is not employer-employee. We are a partnership. But I'm just trying to relate it to something that's in everyday world that, when you're working with others, right? It would be like calling a coworker maybe instead of the boss to check in on, a previous work experience. But yeah, so I don't think I've ever talked to another agent before signing an author. I think that also kind of speaks to a little bit of something else here too, which is that nobody wants to be abused in a relationship, right? And so if an agent is being abusive to a client, then obviously a client should go out there and be like, you know what, this agent is abusive, right? And they're going to talk to their other writer friends. And so I think the same can be said flip side. Like if you're going to be abusive to your agent, then there's a good chance the agent might be like, oh, just be careful. This was my experience. So
we do know of abusive agents. I know of abusive agents. I have clients who have come to me and have said, oh yeah, my previous agent was abusive, or my previous agent did this. And I'm kind of like, Urgh. But I also think it's important because I lost my train of thought, so I have no idea where I'm going with this statement.
Okay. Well, I'll take you up because that has
Please.
happened to me. And so I've had situations where clients have come to me and they have been gaslit, they have been abused by their previous agents. And again, I have those conversations during the call. Like I talk about like what was your experience about? What are you expecting? And what is your communication style? And so that way when we're going into the relationship, we know exactly what it is that that client needs, right? So I've had clients who were like with an agent. I won't obviously say who it was, but we're with an agent that were telling them that their books was getting sent out, but it never did, and yada yada, et cetera, right? So I'm like, if you need me to BCC you on communication so you know that it's going out, I'm happy to do that, right? Like, so I have conversations early. I will send you a list of the editors that I'm going to send out and who we're going to talk to. I will make sure you have copies of all the information that comes in, and I will go ahead and forward it to you so you can see those in real time. So understanding what the client needs. Like on the flip side, though, too, I have clients who are like, you know what? I don't want to see any rejections. Don't tell me unless it's a yes, and that's fine. I keep a spreadsheet, and when they're ready to talk to me about it, I tell them about it, and so forth, et cetera, and so on. So I think it's kind of nice because I think all agents do this in some respects, that we're like a boutique, right? We can cater the needs to each individual client. So I have clients who want to know right away. They keep their own spreadsheets. I just forward them the messages. I have other clients who don't. So it's fine. There's no right or wrong, but just having those conversations early and upfront and knowing and having expectations and then setting them and then adhering to them, I think is important.
Actually, another thing that comes up that you do want to have conversations about, this has come up for me most often when there are multiple offers to a single author. So I'm one of a number of agents offering to an author, and I've seen this come full circle a couple of times. You need to know, I know people talk about editorial agents versus non-editorial agents, and I do think there's kind of some of the agents who've been around longer may be less editorial than some of the newer agents, just because the industry has changed, and we've talked about that in prior podcasts. But I've certainly been in a situation where, if I'll usually give some editorial notes on the call, and we'll talk a little bit about how I would position it, the kinds of imprints maybe I'd send to without going into too much detail. And a couple of times I have lost a client, like a client has gone with another agent. So I haven't lost them. They just didn't pick me because I had suggested revisions, because I am pretty editorial. And I only do high-level revisions on the initial call. I don't do a detailed edit letter or anything. Where a client has just said, no, I want to send it out as is. I want to send it out quickly. I don't want an agent who's going to be messing with my words, which is fair enough. That it's your work, right? I get that. And I can think of one case where it worked really well. I had said something about changing the title and doing a little bit of revision, and the agent she went with didn't, and she got a 3-book deal with a big publisher. So yay. But I can think of a couple of other cases where the client has come back to me a couple of years later and said, my agent sent this out and they didn't give me any revision notes, and now it's dead because they sent it to all these editors and they all passed, and the editors all gave similar notes to the ones I'd given. So then it was like, oh, so, now you should take me on. And it's like, well, what you've actually just told me is that you don't like doing revision and you're sort of having some buyer's remorse. So I think what I'm saying is know which kind of author you are to begin with, if you can. And I get it, if it's your first agent, it's harder to know what you want in an agent. But when you're in your second or your third agent, at that point, know how confident you are with your own prose. Know if you want the agent to be doing any editing, doing some editing. Like what do you want? And this goes back to my very first point, which is it's so much easier for us to know if we can help you and be a good partner if you have a strong sense of what you're looking for, which is, of course, easier with mid-list authors, theoretically, than with beginning authors, because beginning authors may not know until they have that experience.
I have a question. And I think I do it because of Natasha. I could be totally making that up, and maybe I do it because of myself, which, pat me on the shoulder. But I think I took it from Natasha that in the call, you ask people, what's your dream publisher? Who is it? Because I've heard from many authors unhappy with their agents, that they're sending it to places they wouldn't want, or they're not sending it to big enough places. And I think part of it is you need an agent who believes so much in your project that, yeah, I'm sending it to Jonathan Carpet, Simon & Schuster, because he's the guy who's going to pay me $1 million for it. I mean, that's the kind of agent I think you want and need behind your book, because there are books that I've sent out there that I said, listen, man, you're going to give me 6 figures for it tomorrow. And it happened because I had that kind of passion, and sometimes you just know a good book. So, I mean, I think I hear a lot of authors with that complaint, and I think it goes back to having the conversation with the agent, and maybe what agents should start doing, thank you, Natasha, is asking, what's your dream publisher? Where is it? What's your bottom line? How much of an advance are you looking to get? Because I started asking that because that helps shape what publisher I aim for. I mean, obviously you shoot for the stars, all the big 5, but if you're looking for $30,000 bottom line, that cuts out a bunch of publishers.
Mm-hmm.
And actually going, just putting the legal hat on,
Please.
Author-agent relationships are a subset of the law of agency, right? There's a law of principal and agent. We work for you. You are the principal, we are the agent. So we can offer advice and expertise, but you ultimately make these decisions. And I keep going back to my point of knowing if someone, having the best sense I can of whether I'm a good agent for a particular author. If someone says to me, bottom line, I will only accept a big 5 deal for 30,000. If I feel that it's that kind of project, that may be fine. But if I feel I'm not confident that the project could garner that kind of a deal, or that I, as an agent, would know how to position it to garner that kind of a deal, that's why it's really helpful information to know, because then I'll step back and I'll say, this is probably not something I can achieve as your agent. I would recommend you look to the following kinds of agents or whatever. But it all goes back to what Anne said. It all goes back to communication.
She does have a degree in it. And I wish I could use it more. I wish I could be like, hey, Anne, write all our press releases. Hey, Anne, do this. But then I have to pay, and then there's all this. But
communication. We're talking about the importance of communication and clarity and talking to, and I know most people looking for an agent know this, but I'm just saying it because some people still don't. Talk to some of the clients, because they know what communication style that agent has, and they might answer questions that you've felt uncomfortable asking the agent, or asking the agent in a certain way. And, we are not third-party onlookers to our own behavior, so we're not the best judge always of how we behave. So it's, do that. Make sure you do that.
It's also great for building community too, right? True. It's meeting other authors, talking to them, and building your own community as well. I know I always try to pair up sending people to talk to specific authors of mine that I think like they'll get along with, or they write in the same genre, or they write in the same age group, or whatever, so they can get a really close comparison and how it all is. And at the very least, make a friend in the end. And so afterwards, they still get to hang out or whatever, if they pick me or not.
So, yeah, I the last one I said, you can talk to some of my clients, and the last few clients, potential clients I've been offering to, usually say, oh, yeah, I know this client. They love you. They say such good things about you.
But I have to say, I've had that happen more in recent years, as, a lot of my clients' books, which were delayed during the pandemic, are coming online, and they're more socially, and I'm active on social media. And I have offered to people who are like, oh, yes, I know your client so-and-so. And, it's lovely. It's just a lovely feeling when you're talking to a prospective new client and they've already heard of a bunch of your clients and they know them from social media or from a conference. And it just makes me feel happy in the way Anne was saying.
That's the butterflies agents get.
Yeah.
That and getting to make the call like, hey, guess what? We have a deal with, I don't know, Penguin Random House.
Yep.
Final thoughts?
I think I'm going to go back to what Anne said right at the beginning. I just think whoever is initiating, well, actually I'm adding to it, whoever is initiating the conversation about terminating the agency agreement, whether it comes from the agent or the author or it's kind of mutual, think of it as a conversation the same way you think of signing with an agent as a conversation, because it's all part of your longer term career. And if the agency relationship isn't working, it's something to have a discussion about and figure it out and see if it's something that is an easy fix or if it's really time to move on. But I would see it in that continuation of career. It's all just a step in the career, and many people change agents and it's not a big deal.
Yeah, I agree. I've pretty much talked the whole time. So communication is key. Just keep those lines of communication open. Ask lots of questions. Ask them early. Yeah, that's it.
And I think doing things the right way, good, ethical by everyone makes it a lot easier when you do have to leave your agent, because I'm friends with a bunch of my clients, and should they leave and go somewhere else for some other reason, as long as they did it correctly, saying, hey, this is what's going on, business, I have to go in a different direction. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. I get it. We all got our journey. But if it's like, I'm going to steal a deal from you, give it to someone else, that's a different story, my friend. So, Anne, why don't you take us out? Take yourself out.
Take myself out. I'll take myself out. I'll take us all out. So that is us. That is The Literary Lens. Thanks for joining us on another episode with Lane Haymont and Jackie Lipton and me, Ann Rose. If you would like to, we would love for you to like, subscribe, do something else with our Patreon. I don't quite understand. Comment. We love comments. So would love to hear your feedback and thoughts. If you have an idea for a future episode, please go ahead and leave it with us below. Also, we are still accepting email or queries for our Query Conundrum podcast that we are continuing to do. So go ahead and keep sending those in as well. And yeah, buy The Seemingly Possible Love Life of Amanda Dean, because I'm going to just promote myself, because we should. We're authors as well.
I was hoping you wouldn't say that so I could say it, but also...
Okay. Well, you can cut my part out and then you can just say it.
No, too late. Friday, April 26th, we're having our Ask Me Anything office hours, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Come hang out. We're a Rip Riot. Is that a real word? Rip Riot time?
Sounds good.
Does that mean we're funny?
I think.
I don't know.
I'm a lizard.
Jackie's a lizard. So we think we're fun to hang out with. So come hang out with us. Bring your questions. We are here. It's like an AMA. So you come, you bring your questions, we answer them for you, and we just kind of hang out for an hour. So it's kind of fun.